This is our last stop is the berries in the back.
Nice.
Don't judge too harsh.
We're not judging too harsh. So first we'll talk about the blueberries here.
Yeah.
Right, and how long have these been in the ground?
Oh, these just went in March.
Okay, so these just went in March.
These are now in their second year.
So they went in the March a year ago?
Nope, this March. But I mean, they were, you know, a year old when I got them.
Okay, and you didn't let them flower or fruit this year?
Right.
Okay, good. So I see a lot of die off and a lot of burn. And where did you get these from?
I'm from, I forget his name, near Malala Blueberry.
Yep.
Huh?
Yep, I know who you're talking about. That big blueberry guy.
Yep.
Yeah, and he sells them pretty. He puts them online on Craigslist.
Yep.
He sells them pretty cheap, and that's great. I would imagine what you're experiencing with a lot of this scorch-looking stuff is a blueberry scorch virus.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Right in here.
A little bit of that. Yeah, and I have been seeing quite a bit of that over the past 4 years. So what's going on is there's a virus going around for blueberries, and it's called there's blueberry scorch virus and blueberry, what's the other one? Something else. They're both very, very similar. But we're seeing a lot of the blueberry scorch virus in propagation material and in the plants that are big growers are growing out. Some plants are going to be able to withstand and they're going to outgrow it. Other plants are not going to, and they're just going to succumb. So there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. It will not spread from one plant to the next. So there's a little bit of dead on here. I would get the dead off at any time of year. Clean up some of the pruning wounds. It's probably good to give them a little bit more food than you typically would, just to try and push new, fresh growth.
Okay.
I've only had one client who lost 3 bushes. Everybody else is now on the back side of it. So everybody's plants this year, including at the Arboretum, our plants look great. I have another client who was very severely hit, and now his plants have overcome, and now they look great again. So go figure, 4 years of really horrible looking plants, and they're doing fine now. And so these guys have their own bed, which is really important for blueberries because they want a pH of 4.5 to 5.5, where most everybody else wants about a 7. So keeping them separated from other plants that want a higher or a different pH level is going to be appropriate. And so what are you doing to amend the soil to get it to?
I added sulfur.
Okay. Okay.
And then I plan on doing that, you know, this again next year and probably for a few years to get it down.
Yeah,
I think I was in the about 6'2" range when I started, so there's a ways to go.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, 6'2" in the city, huh?
Well, you know, it had previously been composted and...
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's, I see a lot of people putting sawdust down. That's been an issue with multiple clients, and sawdust is great, just as long as you know what kind it is. And sawdust helps with mulch, it helps to feed the soil, it helps do all those things that mulch does. So outcompetes weeds and holds in moisture. But what I've seen is that people putting down too much of it, so like 4 to 6 inches of sawdust, and then it compacts, and then the bushes tend to suffer with that as well. They're just not getting enough water filtration through the top of the soil because it's so compacted, because sawdust is really fine and it compacts pretty easily. And so I've had to scrape quite a bit of sawdust off of many clients' plants, and now they start to recover after they're able to get a little bit more water.
Wow.
Yeah. I
was at NREC a couple weeks ago doing a video. And well, they've got a lot of trials with sawdust, but their new thing is layer of sawdust, I think 3 inches of sawdust, and then landscape fabric over the top of that.
Okay. Okay, so that, you know, definitely helps to hold in some moisture and outcompetes the weeds. And the sawdust, they're probably using that to help feed the soil a little bit. And so I'd be curious to know what kind of sawdust they were using.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. And then you've got strawberries and blackberries.
Yeah.
So strawberries, and you got another little blueberry over here.
Yeah, there's some blueberries in there.
Okay.
The strawberries were just to try to get away with some extra fruit for the first couple years of the blueberries.
Okay. Yeah, and so as we know, strawberries are, you tend to rip them out after 3 years anyways, just to rejuvenate the plants in general.
Yeah, so those went in March also.
These are huge plants.
These are Albion.
Okay.
Day neutrals.
Okay.
And yeah, they're still pumping out some berries that are, you know,
Yeah, those are
very
nice looking
large.
berries.
Yeah.
Those are great. Yeah, so this just sort of, you know, if this is just a temporary situation, that's fine. And so the idea is to pull these out and then let the blueberries sort
Yep,
of
that's
recover.
by year 4 of the
Yep.
blueberries, there'll be nothing else here.
Yeah, great.
But the blackberries are new this year. The
You know what
not
variety?
trellised yet. The raspberries have been in for the whole 5 years, and they're doing pretty well. The blackberries I haven't trellised up yet. There's a few different varieties in here, and they're all over the place.
They are all over the place. Did you get, so are these trailing variety blackberries? They
It's
look
a
like
combo.
they're-
Some are trailing and some are semi-erect. Yeah.
Okay, so gotcha.
And you can see over there the thicker stemmed ones are the semi-erect,
Yep.
and then
Yep. Oh, and you've got thorned and thornless.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, those thorned ones are fun.
one permaculture lady up by Mount Tabor gave me a whole bunch of cuttings from her
Okay.
yard.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So these will be nice. You know, they just need to be sort of taken up. Did they not give you any fruit this year?
No, not off the blackberries yet. Nope.
Okay, so this, you said this was current year? They
Yeah.
Put in this year?
Yeah,
Okay, so that
the
makes
cuttings
sense.
I took in April and put in right away.
Okay, so you know the blackberries, most of them, except for some of the new semi-erect varieties, are going to fruit on 2- and 3-year-old wood. And then once they're done fruiting, that branch is going to die off, and it's very apparent where you need to do your pruning that year.
It's my favorite about the caneberries.
So nice,
Yeah.
so nice. It's just like, oh, you're done fruiting. Thank you for letting me know, and then you can get rid of it. And so the twirling or the vining, trailing variety, you're going to make a loop on your wire. Once that wire is tightened out a little bit more, you're going to make a loop just to hold up the canes and get them off the ground. And then the semi-erect ones, I imagine next year they'll be a little bit sturdier and they'll be able to sort of stand up. So they're going to be, you know, halfway in between. And then you just sort of manage them that way. It looks like you're going to get a lot of propagation out of them, self-propagation out of them.
Well, that's what I was trying to do this year. You know, I basically just layered everything that I took, and you know, quickly had
Plenty.
amplified my 8 cuttings into a whole lot more.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's another thing when you're talking about caneberries. If you have one that's doing really well and sort of propagating itself in the soil, then thinning those out, and that's probably even more important with the raspberries. But yeah, that's going to be something that you're probably going to want to do this dormant season, is thin some of those out, find your healthiest looking canes,
Definitely,
and trail those ones up. You're going to need to do the same thing with the semi-erect until they start growing out new shoots that are a lot more sturdy.
Yep, this is
I like growing blackberries a lot more than raspberries.
Really?
I don't think that they're nearly as management intensive, and I think they're a lot less disease prone. And to tell you the truth, with spotted wing, the spotted wing hasn't touched my blackberries, and it's all over my raspberries.
Yeah.
So there's something.
So it seems like you're saying that most of the blackberries so far are all floricane bearing, and so
Exactly.
then can we just come in and cut everything back after that?
No, you're going to want to keep up your primo canes again. So that first year would, so next year, the stuff that you leave from this year is going to have fruit on it. And then it may fruit another year, but most of the time you're going to take that spent cane out, and the stuff that grows up in 2021 is going to give you fruit in 2022. So you want to make sure that you're not taking out any of your new wood when you're doing your pruning.
Hint, hint for the final.
Uh-huh.
Alrighty. And what about the raspberries?
Yes. So do you know what varieties you have?
I've got fall gold.
Okay.
I've got an unnamed one. There's a combo of everbearing and summerbearing.
Okay. And do they have their own rows?
They did originally,
Okay,
but then
gotcha.
they kind of pop up, and
They
this
do.
year has been nothing but neglect on the berries.
Okay, I totally get it. So I see right here, I already know where, you know, and you can even come and do this at this time of year. Sometimes this one probably looks like a fall gold, because that's exactly what my fall gold did this year too. Some of them, fall golds, they're giving us our second crop right now. But the stuff that had the spring crop on it, because it fruited last fall, has a fall crop, and then it has a spring crop, and then the canes die. And then now you can come in and get rid of those. And this is a new shoot that came up that's going to give me a fall crop. And then next spring it's going to give me a spring crop, and then it's going to die. And I cut that down, and I'll have a new shoot to replace it. So that's how we deal with those
perennial roots,
everbearing.
biennial canes.
Yep, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. Raspberries, you know, like I said, they're kind of a management nightmare. There's a couple of different systems that you could use to try and rein them in. Whenever I am consulting with somebody, you know, I say about 50% of my berry clients are like, how do I keep these contained? That's a challenge that I personally have as well. I think anybody who's growing raspberries has that same challenge. And so if I do any design work, I'm always making sure that I'm putting all of my cane berries into raised beds where I'm mowing either side, or they're in a box so that they're not competing and getting into everything else. And they're a little bit, you can keep them a little bit cleaner that way. So if you're one of these people that likes a nice clean garden, you definitely want them in a box, not just in the ground, because they'll go crazy.
Yeah, I generally tell people to prune out more canes than you feel comfortable with, because there's no penalty. They'll come back. If you really took too much, they'll still come back. And then you can at least see what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, again, you still want good air circulation. And I also noticed, Chris, here that you have raised beds for all of these. You know, they're sort of like mounded up. And that's definitely necessary for your raspberries. Blackberries can handle a little bit soggier soil. That's why we have all these crazy blackberries that do so well in our native environment. But raspberries tend to have root rot, and so you want to make sure that you're giving them extraordinarily well-drained soil, and that's just going to help prolong their life.
Yeah, so before I made the mounds, I dug the trench and I put stones in the bottom, kind of a pseudo hugelkultur, you know, and like larger sticks, and then covered that and mounded it up.
Perfect, that's great. You know, hugelkultur mounds are really, really, really important in gardens, and to keep the longevity and long feeding of your plants. We love them at the Arboretum.
And yeah, I mean, you can clearly see some of my neighborhood neighbors and stuff who haven't done that, but are growing raspberries, and there's just way more disease and many more dead canes because of the wet soil.
Yeah, they really don't like it. Yeah, they're good.
Well, I think that's everything.
Cool.
Thank you so much again for coming over and doing this. I know that students really appreciate it, and given these times, these sort of connections are, you know, make it all hopefully more real feeling and more valuable.